Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, that guy in the Detroit hat, sitting here for you. Yes, my name is Emmett, just like my father and like his father, but they're spelled differently. Today, I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Sobia Zafar. She is a life and business strategist, helping women to live, love, and lead wholeheartedly. Sobia has worked with the United Nations and Fortune 100 companies on transformational projects and has created an internationally acclaimed leadership groups to bring about global change. Hello, Sobia.
Hello, how are you?
I'm busy. You know, we were talking before the podcast that our life shrinks down to get the things done that we need to do. So that means I grocery shopped, I cooked, I yelled at the kids, and then I came down here and I was like, this is my solace. I can hang out with people who are going to teach me something, which was you. So life is good.
Thank you for that special welcome. I feel really excited.
So you're a mom, you have kids, you have a life, you have things to do, but you weren't always. What was your journey like to bring you to right now?
I would say I was stuck in achievement.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I was always a good student. I got pretty good grades. I took things for granted. I thought that was just the way people lived. That was a good life.
Yeah.
Graduate, get that half-eye job, and life was good. And my life was. Good career, healthy family, kids, traveling around the globe. But something just did not fit right. I couldn't name it. And if I told anybody that I wasn't really happy, they would look at me. Do you have any reason to complain? You have a perfect life. So that perfect lifestyle wasn't perfect.
That's true, and that's what, I've come to realize. Some people realize it earlier in their life. Some people, it takes a little time because they fight it. But we have this thing that's perpetuated by media, perpetuated by our society, that you have to do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you just ride it out. Life is not like that. We're different creatures every 7 years. So how can we expect to find one perfect match in lifestyle for 70 years? So what does freedom lifestyle for you? What does that mean?
It's a life that I love living every day because I have the ability and the freedom to do things that are important for me. And things that are important for me change every few years. So I need to reinvent that every few years. After 5 years, my kids will be in a different age range. The kind of activities we want to do, the amount of time I want to spend with them would be different. Right now, they're very young. Their needs are different. I'm growing as a person all the time. I'm meeting new people, having new experiences. What might be important for me in 5 years, I don't know. So being curious, how life will unfold. What would I love to do in the next 5 years? I don't have to worry about that. So my freedom lifestyle is what makes me happy now.
That's awesome. So what was it previously? Were you in that mindset of, okay, I've graduated from primary school. Now I'm off to college. Were you thinking about the experiences you should have, or were you just following a path that was dictated to you by your community, by your peers, by your family? What was that scenario?
I ticked all the boxes. And I ticked them off well. But honestly, I was so busy. I was so exhausted. I had no time to think if life could be otherwise.
So what was your chosen path before or right after college?
I went to university. As soon as I graduated, I did an internship with the United Nations. I was offered a job, great. So I worked in the head office in Geneva. Great start to the career. But now I see, even during that time, I did things that normal people wouldn't do.
Yeah.
So I was still self-aligned. Most of my friends went to consulting companies or big business groups because I went to a business school. I was the only one who went into the development sector.
But that's that's a good sector to be in, though. Because a lot of people, they're just looking for that thing to coast by. And this is very particular for my generation, which was like, so a little bit of the baby boomers in America, and right after that, which was you go to high school, please graduate high school, go to college, get a job, find a spouse, buy a house, have some children, and then there's a question mark after that. And a lot of people follow that path, and so many people get to be 37, 40, or maybe even earlier, and it seems like their life falls apart. At what age was it that you said, this might not be for me?
Well, I'm in my 30s now, and this was 3 years ago. I had a severe burnout. Like one day I quit. My body just couldn't do it. My body refused. I went to my parents' house for 6 weeks. I cried, I slept, I rested. I resigned from my job. I told my husband, I'm not sure I'm coming back.
To the job, right?
To anything in life. I just didn't know I could do another day with another responsibility. Let's put it that way. Even being a mom. I quit being a mom as well.
Oh, so were you going through this anxiety, depression? It had just all built up, and then you're just like, the rubber band snapped, and you're like, I'm done.
It was physical exhaustion, not even emotional so much.
Really?
Because my body got no rest. My kids were very young when I was working full time. Staying up at nights with the children, they can't fall sick, they just don't sleep in the first year. And all that, and showing up, my job was very demanding, there was travel involved. Juggling everything, you're trying to keep these plates together. And just the act of that juggling and keeping your hands straight is like, it's impossible.
Yeah, I hear that particularly from a lot of women who have families. And, it used to be an option once you had children to work. So my wife is from Austria, and she says, this American system, this capitalistic system, some of it is great. There are a lot of parts that suck. She was like, if I had a child, I really had time to step back from the job to be with my child for at least 2 years. She was like, here, you get about 6-8 weeks, and they expect you back on the job. She's like, you haven't even recuperated yet, let alone acclimate to this change. And even on the other side, she said, after that 2 years, then the male can also take a period to be with the child, and his position is held as well. I was like, yeah, that don't work here. I was like,
dilemma of a modern woman, ask me. The expectations have no boundaries. Like there's so much of gray line. Yeah. And that's what's just killing relationships, is killing, because we need to replace expectations with agreements in our personal and professional lives. This is where it ends. This is where it starts. This is where I hand over. This is where I delegate. And a modern woman is trying to be everything.
Mm-hmm.
I accept I can't be.
That's pretty awesome that you actually can admit that. You're like, look, I can't do it. So this makes me want to delve into something else. Now, we're in a very feminine age where the empowerment of women is really coming, and some things from the past are starting to rectify themselves, or they're just starting to come to light. Now, with the empowerment of the feminine, do you think it's actually two different sides that people are on, where some women are like, we want our power, we want to be able to do what we want to do, but there's a responsibility, like, we have these gender-specific ideologies that can cause, like some of the things you went through. Yeah, I want to work, but I also want to be at home with my kids, but I want to do this. How do you think that's going to play out over the long run, or do you think it's just going to be an individual choice?
Here, I would say one thing: you always know what is most important at what point in time. You might not accept it, but you always know. During those years, I just wanted to be at home with my children.
So how did you come to terms with it? During that period, did you say, this is what I need, this is where I need to be, this is how I need to be? So how did you craft your life so that you could have one of value to yourself?
Emmett, so I had to pay the price for it because I did not listen to myself until I burnt out and I dropped it. Right? After that, everything, my perspective on life, how I would live, changed forever. I could never go back to being the same person. Right now, I'm so aligned in myself that if I make a choice which doesn't align with my lifestyle or things that are important for me, I simply fall sick. That's an indication. No.
Wow.
I just can't do otherwise.
So how do you fall sick? I mean, like, what symptoms do you have? Is it like stomach? Is it like head, or you just physically don't feel right?
3 years ago, when I was sick, I had chronic migraines, down every 10 days. Blood test, all vitamins would be low, iron, everything, dizziness. Now, none of those. This is what alignment brings you to. Right now, it would be just like, a bit of allergy coming in or something. And, all our sinus issues are basically related to holding back emotions.
Huh.
Once you understand that, and people think that holding back emotion means that I'm not crying enough. Sometimes you're not laughing enough.
Yeah,
that's what I realized.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? And I always look at people who don't smile, and I ask, "What's wrong?" They're like, "Nothing." And I understand them to a degree because I live in my head a lot. So when I'm in my head, my face is pretty plain. And then someone will say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just in my head. I'm just in my own space." Yeah. So the outside space will not reflect what's going on because I'm really not tuned in. I'm tuned in instead of tuned out. But we all have to identify with ourselves. And so how did you come to the fact of defining what is freedom emotionally and physically for you? I mean, how you went through all this stuff, but you could be just saying, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of everything. But what do I do next? How do I correct this problem? How did you come to that scenario where you said, I have to make changes in my life and here's what they look like for you?
Well, around that time, I started seeing a counselor for myself. And it did not really help. I would just go cry a little bit, something like, I could do with my mom or a best friend. So I wanted to look for something more. That's when I started working with a life coach. And a really good one. It was very future oriented. Okay, this has happened in your life. Let's move forward. And I said, wow, couldn't I do that for a career? Bringing everything together, all the experiences that I've had. I understand what women go through. I can help them. So my journey started from there, and it literally saved my life. At a second step, I came across this book called The Prosperous Coach, written by Rich Lichtman and Steve Chandler. I am in love with that book. So they talk about that before you create your vision board, anything, create a lifestyle. There you define what's important and what your boundaries are. So I decided to work only 3 days a week until both my kids are in school. Right? And I wanted to create a lifestyle where I could travel and do things because my family is across the globe. So I travel a lot. So once I'm traveling, I could be conducting workshops or speaking engagements in those places. Most of my coaching is done remotely, so I could be based anywhere. So when I created that lifestyle, it was able to fill that in, what that would look like. So it was tangible, it was practical. It wasn't something in the air. It was doable. And I could take tiny steps towards it. Once I came back from the burnout, I went part-time in my job. I didn't just drop things dead, I didn't run away.
Right.
Because I had made a good career for myself in the profession that I was in. And I enjoyed it, to be honest. It's not that I hated my work. And I worked with some great teams as well. So I went part-time in my job. But what happened was that people are watching you. They're looking at your journey. They're noticing the person you're becoming. So people in the company that I was working with started asking me, Sobia, what are you doing? What is happening? Like, whenever I would catch up with my colleagues or my mentors within the company after 6 weeks or 4 weeks, they'd be like, look at you, the person that you're becoming. Because I was becoming more peaceful at heart, nothing else.
So did that give you a certain level of confidence when you saw that reaction from people? Because, when you're starting something new, your confidence level, unless it is divine intervention, is shaky. You're like, I know I'd have to do this, but should I? But it seems that you owned the confidence from that and pulled it in, and it started to radiate. So how can others really find that confidence they need to move forward on once they've decided to pivot in their life?
Well, interestingly, I got my clients while I was still in my job, and most of them were my colleagues. Just from conversations. And my first paying client was my boss.
Wow.
And I was totally intimidated in our first conversation. I said, I have no idea why you asked me to coach you. She's one of the most brilliant women that I know.
Yeah, but someone can be very, how do I want to say this? You can see someone and they can be very proficient in certain areas of their life, but the rest of it can be a hot mess.
Ask a working mom that. A lot of it is a mess hidden under the blanket.
Yeah. So, and I talk to my wife because, I hear her say some of the same things as you, and I try to figure it out. But, a lot of times, particularly when you have someone who is in your circle, you have to communicate very well because they just don't understand. Like when I'm going through something that's emotional and physical, internal to me, I have to be able to communicate what that is to those who are closest to me so that they can say, oh, I get it now. Because some people are like, oh, you're just having an episode. So did you have any issues that you to communicate out what you were going through so people could understand who were closest to you?
So I'm quite private about my personal life, let's say. And during that time, I didn't know how to talk about it. I found it hard to be vulnerable. And in the corporate environment, sometimes vulnerability can be taken for a weakness. I had to learn to be more assertive about my boundaries. And all those things boost your confidence. But let me tell you, you can't just wake up one day and pretend to be confident. It happens little by little, standing up more for yourself one step at a time, saying more yeses to things that you want, and then saying no to what you don't want. But it's a gradual process. So if you're looking for a shortcut, or if you're watching all those 7 steps to do this, how to get that, it's not going to work.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. If you go on the internet, there are people who are really having some issues in their life, and there's, hey, 3 steps to how to do this, 5 steps how to lose those pounds, 7 steps how to be more confident. But life is not that simple. Life is not that black and white. It's really gray most of the time, and you really have to pick and choose your battles. Now, you figured out what you want, but how can other people kind of hone in and say, I'm doing this. I don't really want this, but they don't know what they want to replace that. How can they figure that out? How did you figure it out?
The simplest thing that I've learned over the years, forget vision boards, forget about these long-term plans. If you just wanted to start out right now, just say, wouldn't it be nice to have, and make a list of 10 things. Very simple. It can be really insightful, things you write down. Visit this place, spend time with the kids, get a job in a company like that. Just little things. Have time to go out for my coffee every day. A walk in the park. Start from there. we are so consumed in making big plans and getting overwhelmed by not achieving them that we forget why do we really want it.
Ooh,
and we feel more stuck.
Oh, that was a good one. Say it again. We forget why we want it.
Yeah.
That is really awesome. You know, and that's really true, because if you ask anybody, oh, I want to do this. Why? Because I want to. But why? What draws you to that? It could be simply, it looks really interesting and I may really enjoy myself. Or it will really help me to be a better person. Something. But most people don't know their why, like Simon Sinek says. Now, you're a coach. You're doing things. How can people find you?
Well, you can join my Facebook page. That's called The Prosperous Woman. And that's the woman that I'm becoming. That's the woman I want to support more women to become, to go from hustling to being prosperous in all areas of your life.
I like that you said go from hustling. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're constantly going round and round, round and round, and we are not achieving happiness. And ultimately, that's all you and I want. Everybody wants that. We might have different terms for it. That's normally the why behind any goal that you have.
Yeah. So where are you physically located, geographically?
Sydney.
Ah, that's right. How did you end up in Sydney?
I have interestingly moved around a lot in the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Hopped across continents. So when we decided to move again, this was part of the world that we hadn't been to. We said that would be interesting. Let's move there.
Wow. So your passport is like stamp, 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 stamp.
And many passports.
So where are you originally from?
I'm from Pakistan.
And then you went to, so I'm just curious here. So Pakistan, and then where? Switzerland. So you had
Back to Pakistan.
Had a lot of schnitzel and cabbage over it.
Lots of good chocolate mousse, cheese, potatoes.
Yes, their desserts are awesome.
Yes.
They're
the chocolate mousse you do not get anywhere else in the world.
Do you miss it?
Yes, but I go back often.
So, have you been to the States yet?
No.
Oh. Well, let me tell it to you like this. United States is a big place. Most people who are not from the United States and who have never been to the United States, if you look at movies, they make it seem like you just get on a train and you go from New York to Los Angeles. No. A lot of my friends come from Europe. They're like, yeah, I'm here in America. Yeah, let's go to California. I'm like, dude, that's 2,000 miles away. They're like, what? 2,000? I'm like, yeah, it's 2,000 miles away. That's a 4-hour plane ride. They're like, let's go to Hawaii. I'm like, that's a 4-hour plane ride, then a 6-hour plane ride. They're like, what? I'm like, yes, America's a big place. So online, are you going to have any webinars? Are you writing any books? How are you going to move this out so people who identify with the struggle that you're going through can gain more knowledge?
Just as we are talking, I am actually finalizing my webinar presentation today.
Awesome.
So I can share the link once it's done. So that's about how can women lead with power and grace. And that combines the two words because power is we have control over certain things in life. Mm-hmm. And we should be active and taking the right actions in making that happen, pushing our comfort zone. But then there's some things that life brings and we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Accepting that with grace, being okay with it, seeing how can I grow in this situation? How can I become more of who I want to be? How can I serve more people? How can I be more kind? So leading from that space is what brings peace of mind. So once it's recorded, maybe I can share the link with you.
Yes.
And you can share it with your audience.
And do you have any last words for the Billionaire Lifestyle audience? People who may be going through the same struggle as you and just need a little kick to move them forward.
My favorite quote on money. I don't remember who said it, so excuse that. But the author says, I have been rich and I have been poor. It has nothing to do with the money in my bank account.
Whoa. You just keep going deep on me. It's like, boom. Hey, Emmett, I got one for you. Pow, gotcha. So, ladies and gentlemen, hey, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And I want to keep up. So I'm going to offer this to you. I'm going to give you 8 months. 8 months to a year. We'll talk again.
Would be awesome to see where we are.
Yes, because then we can reflect back and see how the journey, and the journey is very important, people. Nothing is, you don't get to the end. When you get to the end, you transition this spirit to the other plane. So it's a journey. As long as you're above ground or can breathe, it's a journey. So thank you, Shukran, for being on the show.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You didn't expect that one, did you?
I enjoyed it, even though not expected.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is how the podcast ends. Remember this. When you get out the shower, you've cleansed yourself off. You've been by yourself. You've gotten to one of those elements, earth, wind, and fire. So you've been with earth, wind, and fire, and then there's water. So after the shower, you've dealt with the element of water, and you'll get out the shower and you're going to dry it off. And then you're going to walk over to the mirror and wipe the fog off. As you wipe the fog off, drop your towel, let it stay on the floor and bask in the glory that is you. You are a billionaire. Just between the tip of your finger to where your hand meets your wrist, that's your hand. Those are your cells. There's at least 1 billion there. If we get to the universe of your gut, there's trillions of cells there. So we're just talking about the bare minimum, 1 billion. You're greater than that. It took 2 cells to come together, and 30 days later, you were a billionaire. So you're already rich. Start to live the human being. As I've said before and 1,000 times, Hugh is the people of the sun, made in the image of man. That gives you human. Now you have to perfect the being part, which is experiences. So go experience life. Figure out what it is that attracts you and go in that direction. Till next time, love you all. Peace.